Welcome back. In this video, we're going to begin working our way through all the different options people have proposed to harmonize the two genealogies. As you can see on your right, the first option we're going to be addressing is the matrilineal theory. So let me begin by giving you a bit of background. So if I can draw your attention to the genealogies on the left, you can see on the face of it, both genealogies seem to be tracing Jesus' ancestry through his father Joseph. But as you can also see, according to Matthew, Joseph's father is Jacob, while according to Luke, Joseph's father is Heli. How on earth is that possible? How can one man have two fathers? Well, quite simply, he can't. So the simplest way to resolve this apparent contradiction is to simply deny that Luke's genealogy is giving us Jesus' ancestry through Joseph. And this brings us to the matrilineal theory, which argues that Luke is providing us Jesus' ancestry not through Joseph, but rather through his mother Mary. Now, who was the first person to propose the matrilineal theory? In his commentary, Plummer notes that this theory was, quote, not advocated by anyone until Aeneas of Vitibro propounded it in AD 1490. Now, this is a very important point, and it should pique our interest. The fact that this theory was not proposed until the 15th century. That is a curious fact, and one that we will return to later in this presentation. Nesselhorst writes the following. Since first proposed by Aeneas of Vitibro, AD 1490, the most common explanation for the discrepancy, at least among evangelicals, has been to assume that Matthew's genealogy traces the lineage of Jesus through Joseph, while the one in Luke traces it through Mary. At first thought, this seems an admirable explanation. After all, everyone has two parents and therefore two genealogies. Jesus would be no different. In this quote, Nesselhorst rightly points out that the most likely reason why this theory has gained such popular attention is because of its simplicity. And thus, if you pick up a popular commentary, you're often going to find this explanation. For instance, John MacArthur, in his commentary on Matthew, quite casually remarks that Luke's record is apparently traced from Mary's side, the Eli of Luke 3:23 probably being Joseph's father-in-law, often referred to as a father, and therefore Mary's natural father. Now we must admit that this solution is very attractive at first sight, because it so neatly harmonizes the contradiction. But before we accept it, we must analyze the text ourselves. So let's start with Matthew. Matthew tells us, quote, Eliezer the father of Mathan, and Mathan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. So Matthew is very clear in telling us, as you can see in the highlighted portion, that Jacob is the father of Joseph, and thus we could represent it in this diagram. There is no confusion within Matthew who Joseph's father is. It is clearly Jacob. Let us now consult Luke. Luke writes, quote, Jesus was about 30 years old when he began his work. He was a son, as it was thought, of Joseph, son of Heli, son of Mathat, son of Levi. Again, as you can see in the highlighted portion, we are clearly told that Joseph is the son of Heli, and thus we could represent it as so. Again, there is no confusion as to who Joseph's father is in Luke. It is clearly Heli. Well, if Luke's genealogy is likewise very clear, then on what grounds does the matrilineal theory eliminate Joseph from the genealogy and instead insert Mary? Where in the text would someone come to this conclusion? In the book Interpreting Puzzling Texts in the New Testament, Robert Stein suggests that Luke 3:23 should be rendered as, quote, and when he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being supposedly the son of Joseph, but actually through Mary was the son of Heli. So now let us return to the text. It appears that the proponents of the matrilineal theory really read into the phrase, as was thought. And thus they would read this section as saying, quote, he was the son, as was thought, of Joseph, but actually the son of Mary, the son of Heli, the son of Mathat, the son of Levi. And thus by making this alteration to the text, they're able to deny the fact that Heli's son is Joseph, but rather he has a daughter called Mary. What are we to think of such an alteration to the text? D.A. Carson, in his commentary on Matthew, notes that this same tactic is utilized by H.A.W. Meyer, who rearranges the punctuation in Luke 3:23 to read, quote, being the son of Joseph, as was supposed of Heli, i.e. Mary's father of Mathat. Carson goes on to note that, quote, but this is painfully artificial, and could not easily be deduced by a reader with a text without punctuation marks or brackets, which is how the New Testament manuscripts were first written. Few would guess simply by reading Luke that he is giving Mary's genealogy. The theory stems not from the text of Luke, but from the need to harmonize the two genealogies. On the face of it, both Matthew and Luke aim to give Joseph's genealogy. Nesselhorst also strongly rejects this tactic, writing, quote, the attempted explanation by proponents of the matrilineal view, if they attempt to explain it, is that Luke 3:23b should be understood as follows. He was the son, so it was thought, of Joseph, the son of Heli, the son of Mathat. Heli then is Christ's grandfather, and Mary is simply unmentioned. But the Greek is stretched almost beyond what is possible. The reading is very unnatural and forced. It is clear from the text that both genealogies claim to be genealogies of Christ through Joseph. Nettelhorst goes on to note that, quote, this explanation is nothing but wishful thinking. Likewise, Nolan, in his commentary, scolds this theory, saying, quote, this solution must finally be judged to be an artificial harmonization. So having surveyed this information, we can confidently say that this theory does not work in the slightest, as it betrays the obvious reading of the text. And this also explains why we have to wait 1,500 years until someone comes up with it. It's because it simply is not derived from the natural reading of the text. So in conclusion, we can confidently say that both genealogies are giving us Jesus' ancestry through Joseph, not Mary. Thus, the matrilineal theory fails at harmonizing the two genealogies. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a comment below. In the next video, I'll be discussing both the adoption theory and the uncle theory. I hope to see you then.